Soul Scripts presents Conversations with Your Higher Self. Hi, I'm Alleson Gregary, and today we have Fiona Carthew. Fiona is a vibrational therapist and energy healer, as well as a photographer. Hello, Fiona. How are you?
Hello, Alison. I'm wonderful today. Thanks. How are you?
Good, good, good. Before we got on here, we were talking a little bit about the solar flares and the energy that was coming in. I'd love for you to share your perspective on that and what you've been noticing.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. So just say, how are you today? And I say wonderful, but it has been a very a very glitchy, crazy 24, probably 48 hours with lots of physical sensations going on, as well as different things going on around us. So it probably started for me about 48 hours ago, sitting on the couch 11 o'clock at night with clenching in the left hand side of the chest and stabbing pain in the back. And the first thing you think human wise is, oh, my heart. I've been a denier of heart medication for a couple of years. So the human part of me says, oh, this is what's going on. But as I breathed into it and closed my eyes, it was more a opening of the higher heart. And as soon as I kind of came to that realization, there was a color change in the room. So this was, as I say, 11 o'clock at night, low lit room in the lounge room, my husband and I just chilling and having a conversation. And the lamp light just shot a flash of white light. And then everything went back to normal. The heart went back to normal, the physical sensations relaxed, and we just sat and looked at each other and went, wow. Because it's not an abnormal thing. It does happen in our life. We have glitchiness occur with electronics and light, often with heightened emotion and other apparitions that I see with my own eyes. So just the last 48 hours has been like a continual push of this energy.
What kind of apparitions do you see? Oh, I think your mic just cut out.
Today.
Okay, you're back. What kind of apparitions do you see?
Well, I see shadows. I see flashes of light. I see. It's funny to explain, but I see snow sometimes in the space between you and me. There's like you know, the old TVs when the channel finished and it just went to the at heightened energy times like this, that's quite pronounced for me at the moment. So I'm on and off wearing my glasses so I can focus on people as opposed to what's going on in the space around us. So that's something that I work with or without, and it seems to come with energies of the earth. When we get hit with these pulses, it's more pronounced. Normally, when the universe is quite calm, I see often, say, more shadows around people, lights around their body, and it's been an exciting journey as a photographer because, you know, always kind of seeing the world through a photographer's eyes. I play with my eyes a little bit and see where I can put my focus and pull the detail out of what I'm seeing in the space around us. So it's a great skill to go hand in hand.
Oh, definitely. And I want to talk about that. But first, the solar flashes are very interesting to me because there's been so much talk over the past few years about this big solar event that's going to come in. And recently I've heard a few people say, well, maybe it's these smaller pulses that are coming in. It's not going to be just one wave that's going to knock us out or anything. What's your thoughts on that?
I do believe that these short pulses that we're getting, they're bringing information. You know, light is energy with information in it. So I believe that we're being built up through smaller bursts of what the human can handle at the moment. As far as a big burst is concerned, I don't know if that's anything we're going to see in our lifetimes. Just my own personal intuition about it. I don't know. the stories that have been told of the big solar flash in one event, it resonates to me in one way, but not in this human in this lifetime, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. The whole photography aspect is so interesting because you and I were sharing our little solar flares back and forth one day, but these solar flares, now I've been a photographer myself for many years, and you'd see solar flares every once in a while. I always used to like to take sunbursts in the back of pictures when I do portraits and things like that. But what is coming to the surface now is way different than your normal solar flare, so to speak. Sorry about that. So what do you attribute that to? Is it something coming through the veil, so to speak, or what do you think?
Well, my personal opinion is yes, it is more information coming through to us from the etheric, from the wider universe, wherever your beliefs pertain that things come from. But I do believe it is information, and I've noticed the same thing, that it has changed over the last, I've been a photographer as well, 30 years, or growing up as one with my dad. And the things that we know as photographers, and the lens flares and how light works around the glass, the images that I'm getting now and the flares and the orbs, I can't explain with my photography technical knowledge. And that's going from a film photographer to a digital photographer, which is a big change as well as to what you can see in your results. But the colors and the shapes that are coming through in these flares are just so different. And as an energy worker as well, they are hitting me in different places, and it's very much along the lines, I feel, of it's sacred geometry. No longer is it just an orb exactly where you'd expect it to be, because as you know, as a photographer, you can plan for these flares. You know what you're doing when you're taking an image. The ones coming through now don't make sense. They're not in the planned light spectrum of what we'd work with as a normal photography. So much brighter colors, and the geometry is clear. Previously, we might have seen a rainbow flare or a bit of a light throw, but now there are distinct geometries, very clear lines, more psychedelic colors even. It's really beautiful to play with.
It is, it totally is. And when you tap into these anomalies that you're catching, what kinds of things are coming through for you?
Well, it seems to be, it's without words. It's symbology that I get from it. I do work with sacred geometry as well on the energy healing side of things. So I suppose I interpret it a little bit that way, but there's still not enough words in it. A cube might be a grounding energy, but a photo that I took the other day of a little girl, she was very, she's been diagnosed as autistic. And there were cubes of all different colors, rainbow colors of cubes that just threw around her right side. And we just talked about it as something in general conversation. What does a cube mean to you if you think of that shape? She said, well, it means to me, the energy. And she doesn't normally talk about energy. She's an 18-year-old kind of 3D girl, but she says it's really the energy of my dad keeping me safe when my head is up here. And again, as an energy worker, analyzing what I do with that, it's like, wow, this is really beautiful to have a combined perspective on it. What I see through the lens opposed to what I feel, because when I see that image that I took of her, it just grounds me so deep into the core of the earth. I sink into my belly when I see that. And it's as I say, bypassing the interpretation, just trying to feel it in the body and then describe from there, because there was another one that I took. It was just out in the bush, probably last week, and it seemed to have not a pyramid, but the two kind of pyramids put together. And I took a series of images, and it appeared to be spinning. So I was seeing different sides of it. First, I'd see a corner in one image, and then the flat side on the other image. Again, that was just a real moment of absolute divinity, you know, again, tapping into the feeling when I looked at that photo, trying to stay out of the mind. It was a real just reach up to spirit, and it was very uplifting. But then when I saw the other image, so that was the one where I could see the corner of it, when I saw the flat side of it, that was a completely different sensation again. It was in my back. Just as say, trying to feel into the body what these images tell me, because words, as I say, just don't do it justice sometimes.
Right.
And then it was funny because, as I say, 48 hours ago, when I had these sensations in my chest and the back, it reminded me of the sensation I got when I saw that image that I had taken. And it was like a tethering kind of feeling in the body, like I was pulled back into the back of the shoulder blades. And that's kind of what I do when I ground myself, is pull the shoulder blades back and open the upper chest and get some more space and light into that area in the body. So, you know, just the last couple of weeks even meld into the last 48 hours. The stories that light tells is great, and photography, just freezing that moment so you can reflect back on it and show others and share it, is it's just so joyous.
Oh, it is. It is. It's my favorite thing. So your husband, is he of the same mindset? Is he kind of awake, so to speak?
He's open to anything. He's a very free spirit, but he's a very scientific guy as well, very grounded. We are a yin and a yang kind of couple. I suppose we've worked quite well together, because I need grounding sometimes and he needs uplifting sometimes. We work very well. But he's definitely open to what is around us, as opposed to just what we feel in this world. And he comes up with his own interpretations of that as well. So we come from different backgrounds. So I suppose we have a different language to explain what we experience in life. But he's definitely a mystic at heart. You know, he struggles in the 3D world. It's all very boring to him, and just wants to play with what else is available. So it's nice, you know, he does keep me grounded through my journey, because I do go into all sorts of crazy places, but still, you know, plenty enough rope to explore. So we work really well together, and we've just celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary, which is nice.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to another 20 or 30. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. But he's been really beautiful through the journey. You know, we knew each other as teenagers, so we weren't together the whole time, but we've seen each other grow up, and now grow up together. And it's a beautiful journey. We've resulted in 3 little children of different spectrums of the world. So that's the next fun game we've got to play. They are 15, 12 and 8. So we've got a lot of laughter still to go through the home before I lose them.
And how lit are those little ones? I mean, I bet you hear some pretty interesting stuff from them, huh?
Yeah, completely. And, you know, children are, I don't know, they say we kind of grow up through our children as they mirror us. They're our little reflections. And sometimes I go, oh no, please don't do that. I remember that. And try and guide them gently without squashing them. But they are definitely awake in their own ways. And it's funny, having the 3 of them, I really feel them represented as mind, body and soul. Each child is so different. One is very, very intellectual and ducks of the school and all up in the head. And the middle one, she's just spirit. She's amazing in her way. She's all heart. And then little Dan, my youngest, he's all body. And it's funny because he's a heart kid as well. So just as I say that to you, I'm quickly reflecting on his life. He really is body. His life journey has been about the body, healing the body, and how that has affected his mind and his heart.
How so?
Well, actually, this is really cool. I've never even thought about this as a perspective, but Dan, so he's the youngest, he's just turned 8 and he's had several open heart surgeries. We knew he was a cardiac kid when I was 20 weeks pregnant. A funny story, my mum passed away a couple of weeks after I'd said, oh, we're going to try for a third child. And she said, oh, a Scottish woman, don't be stupid, lassie. You know, you've got 2 healthy girls. You're too old. Why would you try again? We said, oh, we just want to try for a boy and, you know, round off the family at 3. And she just shook her head and she said, you're already pregnant. I said, don't be silly, you know, we've just gone and eaten donuts and coffee. She said, no, it's not your belly. You're already pregnant. And that was on the Friday. And then she actually passed away on the Sunday. And, you know, she was my best friend as well. So that it did hit me very hard, the passing of my mother. And, you know, when we found out at the 20-week ultrasound, Dan's a boy, much celebration occurred. And then the woman who was doing the ultrasound went quiet and said, I just need to concentrate for a moment. I've seen something. I've just done a course on hearts and I just want to go and ask my boss. So she asked her boss, he asked his boss, and we went through the journey then of knowing we were going to have a cardiac child, and then going through the operations. So he's okay. He's still going to have a lifetime of heart issues. But, you know, I did a bit of research. You question yourself, why does this happen? Is it genetics? Is it my age? We couldn't find anything genetically. So it was just put down to me being an older mother because I was 38 at the time. But it's funny, at the 2-week point, that's when the heart cells are forming of a fetus. And that's when my mother died. And I always joked, not in a very funny way, that, you know, when Mum passed, she broke my heart and his. But, you know, maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of the journey. My eldest child, who's the intellect very much in the head, with the wisdom of a 7-year-old, said, oh, well, you know, maybe Granny had to be taken. So Dan had an angel to look after him through his operations. And you just think, well, there is wisdom there as well. That's sweet.
Well, and the heart is such an energy source too, you know, for so much. I mean, we neglect to look at the heart as like another pathway to spiritual intellect, I guess.
Yeah, very much, because, well, we're thinkers. We're taught to think and use our brain and not follow our instincts. But now through technology, we're able to see how much more powerful the heart is than the brain. And the brain, you know, we use 5% of it consciously to make decisions, and the rest of it is the unconscious, full of the belief systems of the world, the underworld, if you're a shamanic, and all the other journeys we go to in the heart and the mind. So the heart is a huge portal. And for him to have so many issues, you know, we didn't know if he would survive the birth, let alone the first or the second or the third operation. So he is, as I say, all about healing of the body, but he's all up in the mind as well. He's got, because of his start to life, he was addicted to morphine as a baby, trying to recover from heart operation. So his chemicals, his hormones were never naturally developed, and that plays out in his emotions as well. So he's very clever, but his emotional intelligence is slowed. They say because of the the unnatural buildup of the hormones when he was born, because this is something that, again, probably I'm a bit up in the head too sometimes with my babies, because we're taught to trust modern science. That's all we have trust in when you've got your baby's life on the line in a hospital.
I can't even imagine what a challenge that would be. I mean, through those times, usually we go through exponential growth in our human journey. What did you experience going through all of that?
Yeah, well, it was a real confidence in my connection to spirit. So as much as I'm saying we had to rely on the intellect and the knowledge side of things and the science and the technology and the medicine and those explanations, because I had a different insight, I suppose, with what I could see energetically and what I could hear and tap in on, I knew there was a lot more to his journey. So, we were in a children's hospital, and I couldn't stay with him. I had to stay in a different accommodation just near the hospital, but, was going over there all the time to express milk, to just hold him, to be with him or whatever. So I was going into this hospital at, all hours, 3 a.m., going through the basement to go up and see my child in the middle of the night. And the voices and energies in that hospital were just amazing to experience, because there is a lot of energetic imprints from children that had passed. There are a lot of voices to be heard, a lot of energies to be seen around the hospital. And the old Fiona might have been freaked out a little bit by that, the hauntings, the teenage that doesn't know about the unknown, that sort of thing. But as a mother with the love for a child, going through that as the warrior more so than someone scared of things that they couldn't interpret. I found a lot of solace. I would sit and listen to the children that had passed and the messages they had, and often they said, because I can see energies, I can hear thoughts from other realms, and they were really saying, we're here to support the babies to pass when they can't make it, or to bring the parents joy when they can't find it. So that came true one particular night where there was, I was by the bedside of my own baby and felt the energy of many other babies around, and there was a premature baby right next to mine who perhaps, wasn't going to make it through the night, unfortunately. But the nurses were giggling, and they're saying, they're not giggling around the baby. This sounds awful to say as a story, but they were giggling around their workstation, and they say, we don't understand why this happens, because there was a new nurse on shift that night. They say, we just get the giggles sometimes, and it makes us sick to our stomach because we're scared for these babies, but we get this lightness in our heart that makes us giggle for no reason. And it was, that was probably the time where I was saying, right, I've got these skills for a reason, so I'm going to tell them. So I told them in the middle of the night, and they just went, this is amazing, because this has always happened in this ward and for years. And we just, as I say, we feel really bad about it. We're giggling in a ward of children. And so I'm really sorry, this probably sounds very strange, but I've had messages from children past that they hang around to do this, to bring lightness and joy to people here, because the babies need to feel that to help them heal. When they feel the fear from everyone around them, they shut down. And again, what we spoke of before, they kind of shut down this upper chest area, this higher heart, which is where we really open up when we trust and have faith. So that was a beautiful gift that those past babies were still giving to every parent and nurse that were coming into that ward, because a lot of us got the giggles for no reason, just that little bit of lightness in those moments of so much heaviness and concern for your own child. So it was, yeah, really beautiful to pass that message on to people who believed it. So I suppose the journey with what I went through with Dan was the time when I said, all right, so this is the lifetime that I've had of seeing and playing with energies. Now it's time to share it. I've seen that it was a gift to those particular nurses that night. So now I do share it. And yeah, it is a beautiful gift. We have so much fear of the things that are unseen or not of the physical world. So to be able to interpret it for others is really beautiful. And again, back to the photography, for them to see it and walk away with it and have some interpretation as well, is that that frozen moment in time that they can always go back to and bring in the energy and the emotions of it again.
So it sounds like you've had this gift your whole life of being able to see and feel these energies. Is that true?
Yeah. I was blessed with an amazing Irish father who really, I thought at the time, humoured me with his belief in the fairies, because I was always fairy fee down the back of the garden, making little ponds and chairs for the fairies that would visit me. I assumed they visited everyone else as well, and they're just a normal part of life. So, you know, my memory of childhood was never one of being lonely. I had a lot of things around me to play with, albeit maybe not a human child. I was the youngest of 5, so, you know, everybody had left home. I was the annoying one, but I was well entertained myself. I could see again these shapes, these shadows, the fuzziness in the space. I find that hard to describe, but that wasn't there as a child. But I would hear a lot of thoughts as well from others. And again, you think it's normal as a child till people tell you it's not. And I, as a child, went through probably 8 years of some childhood sexual abuse too from a relative. So I could hear thoughts, and to me it was a bit of a protection, because I could hear what people were thinking and knew when to run and hide. And I, in times later on in my life, really tried very hard to shut that out, because it was a great skill when I needed it, to hear what other people were thinking if it was dangerous to me, so I could hide. So I, you know, perhaps interpret it as a gift to help me get through what I went through as a child. But when you start walking around the world and hearing people's thoughts, they're not always very nice about themselves or others. So it led me to a huge period of depression in my teenage years, which led me to all sorts of things. So I've got a past of suicidal tendencies, drug abuse, all the trauma responses. You know, it's like you can write a book. Many of us have gone through the same thing. So, you know, the skills that helped me as a child, really, I felt crushed me as a teenager. And it took me a good 20 years to work through many, many dark nights of the soul to get to a point where I was willing to really own these gifts and then start imparting them to others. Like, as I say, telling people the messages that I'm hearing.
What was that turning point for you when you decided, okay, I'm going to embrace these gifts and not let them control me or crush me or whatever?
Yeah, there was probably a moment, again, it was these big times in our life where we really look inward and think what we're doing. And it was probably at the passing of my father where I brought the gifts back in to help me go through his passing and to help him. So it was, just that unconditional love for someone that made me be willing to let go of any of the negative experiences I'd had using those gifts and say they're here for a reason. I'm going to use them for the right reason. And it's funny, after making that decision, I've been able to just be stronger in myself. I'd gone through 10 years of growth by the time I decided to bring in these skills to use as a tool instead of shut them down, because they were just too much to handle. So it was maybe the passing of my dad that gave me the courage to do that and realise that they are here for good reason, and for others it's not just to squash me.
Wow. The losing of a parent is such a pivotal time. No matter what age you are, it's a really hard one to make sense of. Have you seen your parents since they've passed? Do they come visit you? Do you hear from them?
I do, yes. I speak to them consciously and purposefully, and they speak very loud and clear to me when I'm not listening to them. It's funny with the photography, I see them a lot. My father, I believe, comes through in a particular orb, and when it's normally, I'm laughing because it's normally when I'm the ego, Fiona, is thinking, oh, this is going to be a prize winning shot. I've got this angle perfect, background's perfect, all my settings are perfect, this is going to be great. And there he goes. He's there. And even if it's a commercial job, it's not anything special or spiritual, a contract to shoot buses or something like that. Dad's right there in my last chance to get a good shot. Come on, man. So he was a joker, he was so Irish, such a sense of humour. So he plays with me a lot through the lens. And I see Mum coming in to chide him as well. There's one particular photo, I think I shared it with you, where Dad was there specifically, and then Mum was like this rainbow flare after him.
Oh, yes.
And she was always like that in life as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. So you have a Scottish mom, an Irish dad, and you live in Australia. That has to be an interesting story.
Yeah. Well, Mum and Dad were 10-pound migrants. They came over on the boat. Oh, wow. They'd already had 2 children in Scotland, my eldest sister and brother. And then just when they found out they were approved for migration, Mum found out she was pregnant again with my next brother. So she was terribly seasick and pregnant on the boat over here. And then they landed in Melbourne in a migrant hostel and settled into their life in Australia. Dad did 3 jobs and trying to get his footprint in the country and find somewhere for them to settle. He was a very hard worker. He was a merchant seaman as he grew up as well. So he always wanted to find somewhere by the coast, but ended up in Wagga of all places, which is inland, 5 hours away from the coast. And I know that hurt him a lot. But he was always taking us on adventures as much as he could over to the coast or onto the water, dams, rivers, fishing, anywhere he could get to. So that was lovely. And then my sister and I, so there's 5 in the family, I'm the youngest, but the last sister and myself were kind of accidents. We weren't really planned. So we came in to round off the family nicely. And they've all spread now, it's funny, when I was doing year 12, so in Australia, that's your last year of high school, you're sitting your major exams before you get your entrance into university. And my father had been made redundant in his job and was an older guy and couldn't get work here inland. So thought, that's it, we'll sell the family home and we're going to buy a business down in Bermagui, which is a little seaside village down the coast of New South Wales. And it was just perfect for them. It reminded Mum of Ardrossan, where she grew up as well. So they moved down there and set me up in a flat to do my final year and my final exams. And this, Fiona was very angry at the time and going through all the other stuff. Mum and Dad, of course, made sure I was okay after what was going on in my teenage years. A lot of which was kept to myself as well, but they weren't irresponsible. They made sure that I was okay, and then left me in a flat to do my final exams while they went down the coast. So I mucked up. I got through my final exams, though, got into university, but wasn't interested at that stage in what I thought my chosen career was. And I ended up moving down to Bermagui to help Dad out. So my mum had broken her hip and ended up in hospital. So I went down and learned how to make curtains and put in shower screens and do all the things they did in their business, and went and helped Dad while Mum was recovering from that. And that was a really beautiful healing time after my teenage years, because I spent a lot of time by the ocean with my father, who, as I say, always was that nurturer of the spirit in me. Mum was very sensible and very Scottish, and stop talking crazy sort of thing, just concentrate, do the best you can. Whereas Dad had, come on, back down the garden with me. So I spent a lot of time with him on the beach. He was a navigator on the ships growing up, so he knew all the stars. He knew the galactics, he knew the planets, and we would sit there till 3 a.m. talking about the stars and the planets and the galactics and all the things he'd seen in his times on the ships. And we saw a lot of anomalies in the sky over those evenings as well. So it was just really beautiful times. And he was the photographer. He was the influence to me with photography. So whenever I was bored as a child, we'd go into the dark room and play photography. So we had a dark room at home. We were really lucky. And he taught me how to really push the film to develop the images, and brought me great understanding in light. So it helped me understand what I was seeing with my own eyes without the camera, and how to play with focus and tone, and use my eyes as the camera, playing with the apertures and the shutter speed of the eye, so I could pull different things out of the space with what I could see.
Wonderful. Wow. So at what point did you decide, I'm going to pursue my energy work and that sort of healing? At what point did that come into play? Because I know you still kind of do some 3D work too, and you do both, but when did you decide, okay, I'm gonna make this part of my career path?
Yeah, well, it was again after it was after Mum had passed that I decided to turn it into a career, because we had a shift in where we lived as well. When Mum passed, we were up on a farm. We were off grid, completely self-sufficient. It was just beautiful. But then I had my cardiac kid who needed to be close to hospitals, medical systems. We wanted to be closer to family as well. So I'd lost my mum and dad, but my husband's grandmother and aunts were still alive. So we decided to move to Coolaman, where we are now, to be closer to family and be closer to hospitals and all the things we needed for Dan. And in what I'd gone through in losing Mum and helping Dad when he passed as well, was okay, this is where my life lies. It's in helping people with the skills that I've got with energy. So I had I'd studied Reiki in my early 20s, but I found a modality called kinesiology, which I absolutely fell in love with. And it was all probably around the age of 42, which is an important number. If you've ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, if you've got anyone that knows about that, 42, the number is the meaning of life. And it was very funny to me, because I had a real moment of, this really is the meaning of life. It is helping others, rather than being a single-celled organism just worried about me and what I'm building up. It really is about the interchange between people that makes life special. So yeah, I really ran with it. I did courses. Well, I went through the training to become a kinesiologist. I was a master Reiki practitioner previous to that anyway. And I then did a lot of training in other modalities as well. But I found myself, because I've got the influence of my husband, which is beautiful with the scientific side, I found myself exploring and teaching myself how to explain the work that I was doing in any way, whether it was mind, body, or soul. So when people come to me, I always ask them, what belief system do you come at me with? Is it a scientific belief system, spiritual, religious? Because now I've found ways to explain it to anyone, whether it's mind, body, or soul, that they're coming to me, you know, from that perspective. So Damo, my husband, has really helped me with that, because I've really had to reteach myself science. When I was going through high school and having this terrible time with depression, I suffered chronic migraine headaches all through my childhood. So I missed out on a lot of school and missed the building blocks of science, which really upset me, because I was fascinated by science, and I just couldn't catch up, unfortunately. So I dropped all the biology, chemistry, physics, and went and did music, which is my other passion anyway, photography, art. So you know, nothing is a mistake. It's just another color in the spectrum. But I really dived into the science side so I could explain to my husband what I was doing, because you think we need that. We need people to understand us, to support us. So I dived into quantum physics and found ways to explain light, and how I do remote healing with people with energy, tapping into photons, light photons, the bioluminescence of the human, and this sort of thing. So that was really exciting for me, and I'm really pleased I did it, because I am confident talking about the work that I do to anyone. It's all a part of sharing it to the world, because often if we're just coming from one side, there's 2/3 of the world that we're sure aren't going to listen or believe us, perhaps. So this is where I've got my confidence to do what I do and speak how I do, because I believe I have a way to get through to anyone in any belief. And it was really funny, because once I did learn how to explain it to my husband, and I had him on the table and worked with him, you know, he would try and if you don't know kinesiology, it's a bit difficult to explain. We use a thing called a muscle test in kinesiology to tap into the subconscious. And he would try and fake this muscle test to, oh, I'm not going to let her in, sort of thing. And, you know, this is all a bit of bullshit. But it got to the point where it's like, oh, I can't even fake it. You know, you're doing the work anyway. And he said to me, honey, I don't want to know how it works. I just trust you. So, oh my God. I spent years learning this, and you need to sit with it. No, I don't want to know. So, oh my God. So, you know, we think we're doing something for people, and they don't even need it, you know. But nothing, as I said, is without reason, because it has really helped me have the confidence to really back myself into the work that I do and put it out to a public forum.
Beautiful.
God bless him.
Now, do you see people in your home in person? Is everything done remotely? How can people get, you know, find you, and what kind of services can you offer them?
Yeah, so I work in all sorts of ways. I can work hands-on on people, and I do see them in my home now. I used to, I would always utilize a healing room, normally at a yoga center, or there's a naturopath that hosts me there at their business as well. But I found coming out to Coolaman, so it's a half-hour drive for local people in my network. The drive out to see me is part of the healing, and the drive home is part of the healing. You know, when we don't often give ourselves a lot of time to think and dive deeply into the work that we do. I have some people say, oh, look, can you see me in a lunch break? I've got an hour for lunch. So, oh, I can, but it's not going to be as effective as we probably both want it to be. It's not that kind of work. So the drive out to see me, you know, they're pondering what they want to work on. On the drive home, they're integrating what's come up in the session before they have to go back and hit their real life. So I've really settled into working from a home clinic now. And aside from that, I do work remotely on people all over the world. So it's beautiful. I've got a lot of modalities that I use, but I just tap in and ask the beings at the time, what do you want? So the work that I do, it's completely channeled through me. It's not from the conscious mind. And as I say, this muscle test that kinesiology has gifted me the knowledge of is it's powerful to me because it removes the Fiona, the conscious mind, who wants to interpret all the stories, completely removes her out of the picture and just brings in all the wisdom of the person I'm working on, of all of their levels. So yeah, I've found my stride in working that way. So, you know, somebody might say they want me to work on their right knee because they heard it jogging or something like that. But then when I tap into the muscle test, it says, no, actually, we're going to do some inner child work. That's your body's priority. So,
Wow.
okay, so we'll do the inner child work. And often the knee fixes itself anyway.
Interesting. How do you do the muscle testing remotely?
So I'm using myself as a surrogate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I also, depending on different ways, and I'll muscle test, and I've found different ways to use my whole body instead of just a particular muscle test. And that's developed more skills of intuition, I suppose. But I will use I've got a acupuncture doll that I'll use as a proxy if I don't feel comfortable taking the surrogate on my own body. So these are maybe strange concepts to people that haven't worked with remote kind of healing before, but you're basically just asking permission to take on the energy of the client on all levels and dimensions. And sometimes you don't get the permission to do that. And so we might just have a nice conversation and you know, do other work from there. But if I am given permission to take on the surrogacy of the client, it is a real gift. I consider it as a real gift from spirit that they're willing to let me step into that person's body. And it's a real sensory trip when you do this sometimes. So I've taken on surrogacies of all sorts of people, and you feel the change in your body. Wow. It's quite beautiful. And, you know, one of my sisters, the one I'm closest to, she's a federal policewoman, and she's gone overseas. She's done Afghanistan, she's done Solomon Islands, all sorts of things in her life. A lot of PTSD. She's been bombed, all sorts of things. So a lot of the reason why I wanted to do this work was to help her. You know, as a child, she was a bit of a protector for me with what I went through. So, you know, I'd like to gift that back to her with the energy work, if I can help her body just calm from the experiences she's gone through. So when I was first doing a kinesiology course learning about taking on a surrogacy, I wanted to take my sister on. And we rang her and got permission that she was happy for me to do this. And she was fine. And it's funny, as soon as I did take on the surrogacy for her, I felt completely different. My whole body was like this, my shoulders raised. it was a privilege to be in her body, but it was terrifying. And when I spoke to her about what I felt, she said, yeah, that's me. Until I take the psych drugs that the psychs have put me on, you know, to calm all these feelings down. So we did get some shift in her as well when we did that balance. You know, we actually got her shoulders to drop a little bit and her neck to relax. So again, through doing these courses and seeing the proof and hearing that back from someone on the other side of the world, it builds up your belief in what you're learning, and it's much easier to go on from there.
It's fascinating.
Which is a funny thing. You know, I said to someone yesterday, actually, because I've studied a lot of modalities, and they say, do you not feel conflicted between them? Because some of the beliefs in the modalities you learn, they are conflicting, and it's difficult not to get carried away, or it's not difficult, but it's something to be conscious of, not to be carried away with other people's bailiwicks, I suppose. You know, you really got to make each modality your own and feel into it and see how you feel about it. But as I said to this client the other day, a lot of the modalities, the structures that you learn are just like a scaffolding of building up the belief of the practitioner and the client that instant change can happen. And sometimes people need a belief to allow that spirit to come in and make that change in the body. So this is where I find the muscle test kind of works. It tunes into the being on what will resonate the most with them, with their beliefs, to let go of what they need to let go of in an instant for that healing to occur. Because I do believe it happens in an instant. It might be an hour-long session of bringing information up from the subconscious. The healing itself can happen in the split second of a split second in this light.
Now, what is the responsibility of the client in that case? I mean, do you ever like work on something and then they walk away and they still are holding on to that belief? And does it take a while for it to build down? Or do you tell the client, okay, I want you to work on this when you go because it's going to be important, try to do X, Y, Z?
Yeah. So I purely do what spirit guides me to do in that time. So sometimes in the balances I do, it might come up with homework that the client will have to do. And that's probably rare that occurs. I do speak to my clients to say that this is a 50-50 contract we've got going here. You know, I commit to working with you, but you need to commit to your own self-healing. Because some people it's exciting work. It's telling stories of our whole being. So people love it. And some people, no offense to anyone, we all have our own journey, but were using me a little bit like a Panadol. You know, they weren't doing any of the uplifting or the conscious work themselves. They just wanted to come for the stories, and they didn't get any big shifts until they were willing to say, all right, it's not the story anymore. It is actually the healing I'm after. So depending on where people are at in their journeys, nothing is wrong in this, but it is often a peeling of layers before someone's willing just to say, all right, miracles are possible and probable.
Most definitely.
So some people, it's one session and that's all they need. They are happy to let go of all the stories and just bring the spirit in and take the instant healing. And I never see them again. I will check on them to make sure they're okay. Is there anything else that they need? And they say, actually, no, I'm fine. I checked on someone I worked on 5 years ago. They're still fine. They had terrible back issues and neck issues, and we were able to work on that. So it's really just where each person is in their journey. And I'll never tell someone that you need to do something in particular or you need to come and see me weekly. If I get through the muscle test that there's more work to be done, I'll just let someone know that you'll know when it's time to call me again, because we've already kind of opened up the door to their intuition. And you know, when they can't get me out of their head, that's when it's time to message me and come back and see me.
Oh, how perfect.
Yeah. But it is definitely, and again, this is the science side of Fiona, taking away, not to take away from the spiritual side, but to say that a lot of this work is bringing things from the subconscious to our conscious awareness to make a decision, to make different choices from here. And there's the healing. But it can happen in that split second of feeling pure divinity in your heart. However it happens, you know, some people might need 16 muscles balanced and meridians harmonized. Other people just need to be reminded of their divinity.
Fiona, that's so beautiful. I really appreciate you coming on here today and sharing all of this with us. I'd love to do it again sometime.
Thank you so much. I would love to chat to you anytime. It's been beautiful to meet properly and spend a bit of time together like this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, my dear. And I'm going to stop the recording, and I'd love to chat with you a little more afterwards.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.